Welcome to this very special NABC episode in English. And it's gonna be about sustainability, about waste to energy, because the global north should change their unsustainable patterns, of course, of consumption and cut their urge for resources, because it's Africa who suffers the most. But also the global south has to move to a more sustainable economy. What are some of the big players in Africa, and can an African country be a worldwide frontrunner? I'm very honored to have a special guest today. His name is Samuel Alemayi. Is that correct?
Almost perfect, yeah. Sam Alamayo, yes.
Samuel Alemayo. He's the global manager and director of Cambridge Industries. And before he founded Cambridge Industries, he started his career in Silicon Valley as a social entrepreneur. So, Samuel, what makes Africa more appealing to you than Silicon Valley?
Lots of opportunities. It's a blank canvas. So all of the mistakes that have been made in Silicon Valley, you get to restart all over again. Do something new on every front.
Wow, that's great. I'm here not alone. Our second guest for today is Arne Doornbal of the Netherlands African Business Council. You have already seen Samuel at Africa's African Works, right?
Exactly. That was 2 years ago. Africa Works is the flagship event of the Netherlands Africa Business Council. It had, I think, 300-400 guests, and they were all very blown away by Samuel's presentation about, his company, his plant there in Addis Ababa. So I'm really looking forward to hear how the situation is now 2 years later.
My name is Jos of NGIZ Nu, but I'm not alone here. My good friend Marcel Wolters is here. Hey, Marcel.
Hey, Jos.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's really nice to be a stand-in to well-known Yuri Notier, and let's see what happens. It's a nice topic today.
Before we get stuck into details, Samuel, I want to zoom out a little bit and talk about waste to energy. What is the idea, Samuel?
Well, the idea was waste to energy is how do you turn garbage, trash, or generally waste into something valuable? Instead of it being a nuisance, how can we turn it into value and extract out valuable materials from energy to recycled materials out of waste?
So the loop is like 360% round because so you can start all up. Is nothing wasted in what you do?
That is the goal. Right now, we're wasting about 1% of all the waste that we get in. The goal is to get to absolutely zero.
Wow. That could be incredible. But what do you do?
Good. So what we're doing is we're taking in waste. So the first year of operation, for example, the first facility that we built took in 530 million kilograms of waste. That's about 95% of all the waste collected in a city of 5 million people.
It can be all kinds of waste. Doesn't matter what kind of waste.
We don't take toxic waste out of factories, but when it comes to household level waste, it takes almost all the waste, and it processes them to generate electricity. It's produced, and that is using steam turbines, and all the waste gas out of it are cleaned through flue gas treatment.
Steam turbine sounds very old-fashioned.
It is old-fashioned. It is tried and true. So even the brand new facilities that are being built in Oslo, Copenhagen are using steam turbines. And the beauty is you do two stages of the steam. The first stage of the steam, where it has a high temperature and pressure, you use it to generate electricity. The second part, we use that for construction materials, curing concrete, precast concrete. But we're also adding wonderful technologies as part of this. What we're turning our facilities, and instead of calling them waste to energy, we're actually now calling them sustainable city parks. The goal is to generate value out of them. One part is electricity. The other part is to be able to capture, for example, the methane, and we're turning methane into biodegradable plastics.
Biodegradable means it can be natural.
It could degrade back into nature naturally. The same way a banana peel that comes as a natural packaging for bananas biodegrades back into nature naturally without any additional intervention.
Where exactly is this happening?
What we have built is a series of facilities. So we've done one in Ethiopia. We're in the process of building another one in Kinshasa, a city of 18 million people. And we're doing similar projects in other parts of Africa. And the goal is, how do you create a place that is a waste disposal site? The waste is already sent in. All the plastic that could be recycled has been recycled. How do you take that waste and turn it into something of value while you're disposing it? And it's capturing everything that comes out at the various stages. So at the Addis Ababa facility, that took us a very long time, and we'll share a lot of the challenges that goes into trying to build a facility in Africa. It took a long time, but once it was up and running, it has been able to transform this garbage into something of value. The electricity, the excess steam, recycled water, recycled metal, and interlocking bricks.
Arne, can you give me a sense of how big the waste problems are in Africa in general?
I think it's brilliant what Samuel is doing. I mean, it's basically there's two major challenges, right? On the one hand, there is a shortage of electricity, and on the other hand, yes, the garbage collection is always an issue. I mean, a lot of African cities, it's not really like here in the Netherlands that it's organized by the municipality. Normally you have to pay a lot of money to get your trash out, and a lot of people don't have that. So I think a lot of Westerners, when they first come to Africa, they're always a little bit disappointed by the way there's like always lots of trash everywhere hanging around, and so there's issues, and then it is causing issues because sometimes drainages are blocked, then flooding cause things like that. So it
Especially
is
in
a
Addis,
major.
right, Samuel?
So in Addis, the waste collection has improved significantly and waste disposal has improved. But those were the problems that we were having. So you go to cities like Lagos right now, just exactly as we were saying earlier, a lot of drainage has been blocked. You will find garbage in waterways. You'll find garbage where kids are playing. Unless you collect it properly, and after you collect it, unless you dispose it properly, if waste is staying with you, it's a health hazard as well as just a total environmental and social problem.
Do people, let's say in Kinshasa or in Addis Ababa, see waste as a big problem?
Very much. Yeah, that is absolutely shared challenge. Now, one of the problems that you see is well-to-do communities will actually pay a lot of money to have their waste removed from their immediate vicinity. It's almost out of sight, out of mind. But the problem is you drive a little further from where you live, the garbage is still there. So it is a problem that everybody shares and wants to see a solution for.
Arne said something about the collecting, the front of the process being difficult. I can imagine. I wonder who finances this. Who are the main financiers of this? Like Arne already explained that. Well, in Holland, it's the taxes. It's a very straight system. But who's the main financial foundation on this process?
Good question. It really depends city to city. A lot of time you want to have a sustainable solution. So in Addis Ababa, it is actually financed by a very small sanitation tariff just for collection. The disposal is covered through the energy that it produces and all of the other ancillary outputs. But when it comes to collection, water bill, so the Ethiopian government had added 50% on top of household water bills that are progressive. So if you make a small amount of money, use a small amount of water, the water bill is very, very cheap. The more you consume, it's more expensive. And there's a small tariff that is added to that, a sanitation fee, that actually covers all of the waste collection. Waste collection in Ethiopia has improved from 33% in 2010 to over 85% right now in the city of Addis Ababa, which is a much, much greater improvement. And it has created 15,000 jobs, 1 5, just in waste collections throughout the city of Addis Ababa.
That's a good collection of benefits right there. Yeah.
Is that how you think as a social entrepreneur from Silicon Valley? So not only waste to energy, but also, let's say, thinking about what it can bring to a city or to young people in a city, more specifically.
You have to. That is the only way something could be sustainable. Donations play a significant role in creating capacity building and jump starting initially, in creating education, helping with legislations. But after that, you want projects to be sustainable. And once you put them in that cycle of sustainability, all the jobs that it creates, all of the value that you get as part of those services, it's very hard to stop them once they start. And that is the definition of a good business, is a business that is put on a track to stand on its own.
Yeah, but there's a difference between a business and a social entrepreneur or a social business. And because we're talking about waste management and getting energy from waste, all kinds of waste, but now all of a sudden you are talking about creating jobs. I mean, that's not your business, but still you take it into account. You measure it, the impact of what you're doing. Is that a way of looking to things that is very special to social entrepreneurs?
True. I mean, you raise a really good point. When we are looking at the value, the return on our investment, it's not just cash that comes into our pocket. It is how much value are you adding to the community? How sustainably you are staying, the more jobs that you're creating, the more environmental benefits. Just even the fact that it looks good for kids to be able to go out and play, so that they're exercising, so that they're healthier. If you could measure the health impact of a cleaner city, it doesn't take a genius to figure out if your waterways are not polluted, you're going to have a lot less diseases. So yes, a social impact has to account for all of those intangibles outside of the financial return at the end.
Do you, Arne, have more social entrepreneurs who are members of NEBC?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's the whole thing is we need to move towards a more circular world, right? We all know that resources are eventually running out. We have, also a company within our networks, that's recycling mobile phones, for example, just to make sure that those things don't end up in the garbage dump. And there's still a lot of valuable things in it. So absolutely, that's a very important thing. So we hear, waste collection, we hear that, much more, like people trying to get from waste small insects, which can then again be used for animal feed, things like that, like those kind of innovation. I think that's really what we're going to have to look at in the coming years.
It's not always easy, Samuel. You said we're gonna look at some struggles that I have or previously had. What is the biggest struggle to finalize the first energy plant?
I don't know if you have enough time to go through a lot of challenges, because
You're still laughing. That's good.
the one amazing intellectual property that we have is we have intellectual property on what doesn't work in Africa. A lot of it. But the thing is, I laugh because it's part of the challenge, and you got to face that. When you're looking into kind of, for me, especially coming back, I'm originally from Ethiopia, I'm coming back to Ethiopia, coming back to the continent. A lot of the challenges are the infrastructure to enable private business or social business doesn't really exist. So you really have to figure out quite a lot of things. And what I thought would work in Silicon Valley or in a Western environment and trying to transplant that lessons just didn't work. So there are a lot of things that we had to fix and evolve from. And then third, when you're working in this type of environment, when you're just generating pure electricity, you're dealing with utilities. And then for the garbage, you have to deal with municipalities. You have multiple stakeholders you have to balance. The infrastructure is still not strong, both the soft infrastructure and the hard infrastructures to enable collaboration. So those are the things that bring about a whole lot of delay. So when we are trying to bring this facility up and running, we had to shut down multiple times. We had to stop multiple times. They had nothing to do with technology problems or implementation problem, and they were entirely being able to work out with the social challenges as well as the infrastructure challenges, and also sometimes even financial challenges with foreign exchange shortages. But over time, you have to also innovate for those things as much as you innovate for pure technology.
You just mentioned you are Ethiopian, coming back to Ethiopia from Silicon Valley. Did that help in overcoming these kind of issues?
Not necessarily. And actually, so it helped on many ways. It allowed me to create a whole lot of contacts from around the world, recruit great engineers, great financing partners, technology partners. But it also made it very hard for me trying to learn into how Ethiopia works or how Kinshasa works. And you don't want to try to duplicate that. For me, it took me a while to say, I'm not going to out local kind of the local systems and learn how to adapt cultural traditions and norms that for some reason, I've gotten myself a bit Silicon Valley, like a westernized kind of system that doesn't necessarily work. So I had to adapt ways, most importantly, of kind of social issues, social norms, and even just the way things take time to get done. I needed to adapt a bit better, but that is done well by recruiting great talents locally as well.
Yeah, Samuel, I was just wondering because you already mentioned that you also yeah, Silicon Valleyed a bit in your way of thinking, that coming there you have your background but also the American way of thinking, I guess. So I can imagine you need some people on the ground in Africa there where they that have both sides, that are with their feet on the ground there but also have this American way of thinking. Did you have these kinds of partners or people that you could relate to and that helped you in this experience?
Absolutely. Without finding great local partners with the expertise in various fields on the ground and recruiting even our new engineers locally and trying to marry the two because there's great assets on both sides. There's no way we could have succeeded on the first facility as well as future facilities future technologies that we're trying to incorporate as we expand.
Is that something, Arne, you see in a lot of businesses that you sort of need both glasses, like Western glasses and African glasses?
Absolutely. I think that's what we hear very often. I do recognize Samuel's story. Of course, I've read and researched about it. I mean, there's also a little bit of a risk that when you come from the diaspora, I guess, with all these modern and new ideas, you may get stuck on some kind of bureaucracy here and there. So you do have to blend that in. You can bring new ideas, but without being perceived as arrogant coming from outside. And you do need to find indeed a couple of good thinkers on the ground. But local presence, I would say, is absolutely everything. Never expect you can run a business in anywhere. From a different country, you need very strong local people, and I'm very sure they're there in a lot of countries, and certainly in Ethiopia.
We've talked about big projects, Samuel, also in our other podcast with other guests, like huge project like in the north of Kenya with Carlo van Wageningen, or African countries like Congo Kinshasa or Ethiopia, where you were working. Are those good places to have these kind of massive projects running?
Yes, absolutely. The reason is when it comes to take electricity and energy, the amount of electricity and energy per capita is so low that the space to grow is massive. Recent studies project that,
Potential is high.
oh, very high. Over $70 billion worth of infrastructure has to be built every year for the next 20 years in order to be able to catch up. And it also is, one thing that is exciting for me about working in Africa is a lot of innovative technologies, new technologies are adapted at a much faster pace than even in the US and many other Western countries where legacy infrastructures are in place. And whenever you're trying to introduce wonderful ideas and concepts, you have to compete with legacy infrastructures. So that is the reason why companies like Zipline, for example, where they're building next generation drones, are able to get that adoption in Africa and actually genuinely build a world-class technology company that is worth over $2 billion. And their first 6 year of business was entirely in Africa because African countries tend to adopt those technologies to leapfrog than having to build large-scale roads and railways to reach a small community. So the best generation long-range drones are built in Africa before they're built in Western countries.
I see Arne smiling and nodding his head. Why is that?
No, I thought let me just briefly, because you mentioned Zipline. I guess most people active on the African continent in business know that. Other people may not know that, but it's actually indeed a company which I think is using drones to deliver blood to hospitals originally in Rwanda. It's a very Silicon Valley company, I think, again, with some kind of African touch around it. I never knew it was worth a value to 2 billion already. But yeah, I mean, those kind of things you see coming up there. in corporations, between outside ID and localized ID. But maybe let me ask you, Samuel, because indeed you said your company actually had to shut down for a couple of times in the beginning. How did you manage to overcome that? I mean, was it mainly an issue between you and certain authorities there, or what exactly happened?
Yeah, it was entirely a bureaucratic problem. It has nothing to do with the technical challenge of the facility and building something that was very unique in the kind of waste that it was taking. For a lot of people, it was, oh, see, it cannot work. Africa's waste, but it was entirely a bureaucratic issue of handover, payments, and various other things that needed to be worked out. But we were able to work that out, and the facility has been up and running and has been the primary source of waste disposal. But as Zipline, one of the things that has been exciting for us was the more you spend time in Africa, you start working and developing technologies that are in the forefront anywhere in the world. So one of the things that we've been doing is capturing the methane, because we're located right next to the landfill, and the landfill is this 60-year-old, 70 meters deep landfill.
Gross.
So the methane that we capture from there, we're feeding that methane to a special kind of bacteria called methanotropes. This methanotropes, they store the carbon from the methane and store it in a form of this product called PHA, or polyhydroxyalkanate. And polyhydroxyalkanate, or PHAs, are amazing materials to what I was saying earlier of biodegradable plastics that we're exporting abroad now to be used to replace any kind of single-use plastics that fully biodegrade back into nature. These are some of the technologies that only a few places in the world are working on, and we are advancing and working on that, and something that has been super exciting to be able to use naturally occurring bacterials and turn something that has been quite toxic in a form of methane, one of the most potent greenhouse gases in the world, into valuable products that can replace petrochemical products.
Samuel, I was just wondering, with all these freedoms and these possibilities you just mentioned, it must be also important to also drag in more knowledge from abroad, from Silicon Valley. They must be thriving and waiting for these kinds of projects. Is it also back towards Silicon Valley and those kinds of places that you're trying to do some marketing to get this knowledge in?
You're absolutely right. But, as you guys know very well, even when I was at the Africa Works conference, you were starting to blur the line. And those type of conferences are very powerful in bridging the Western world with Africa, and to the point that everything is seamless. Everything needs to flow as smoothly as possible, so that knowledges could flow on both sides, opportunities could flow on both sides, capital resources still flow heavily from Western places, but they find a place where they can get great return as well as see great value and change. So we're starting to see Silicon Valley companies investing aggressively into African continent, but also African continent adapting and being able to attract talent from all over the world. So you see lots of African companies having multiple offices everywhere.
No, but are you as a person also a bridge?
I have to be, and I find, like, I pride myself in the Silicon Valley Bridge, and even when I was at the Africa World Conference, I made permanent contacts of great partners that we're working with together now during those events and conferences. So for me personally, I see myself playing that bridge role, but also continuously, because that bridge is a living bridge. You attract more people. It has to be supported. I can't just, because I used to be in Silicon Valley 10 years ago, somehow all those ideas and connections would flow. They won't happen. So you need conferences, you need events, you need activities, you need this podcast to continuously bridge the ideas and concepts, so that we're always continuously working together.
What are some of the newest ideas that are coming and that are in your mind somewhere?
Oh, we got some exciting stuff. I'm not talking about it earlier. We love insect farming, being able to grow black soldier flies and turn them into chicken feed, animal feed. There's also a side of that where you could turn those insects into a chemical called chitosan. It's an $11 billion industry that provides components to the cosmetology industry. It's It's a fantastic sector. It replaces the use of shellfish. We also have wonderful technologies around the world of microbes. I talked about methanotrope bacteria that eat methane. There are also another type of bacteria called hydronotropes that actually specifically eat carbon dioxide. And you could turn that into lots of other valuable materials, protein sources to many other kind of valuable sources. So those are some of the things that we are super excited about. And within the waste to energy world, we're also super excited about building materials, turning a lot of old building waste and turning them into valuable materials that could be recycled and reused.
Is there more happening, Arne, in terms of waste to energy in Africa that you see from the point of your perspective?
More than this. Now, I guess Samuel just gave a fantastic sum up of all the different elements. I do remember once some Dutch people trying to extract gas from an old landfill, because of course there's a lot of organic waste, and that also some biogas can come from that. But I mean, those are all the things. The number of landfills are huge, and I think they're just waiting for people to do useful things with them.
Yeah, so I just said that landfills, I said gross when you said one of these landfills in Ethiopia, but maybe you don't look at those landfills that way.
I look at them just as Arnold said. I mean, they have a lot of amazing gas that could become converted into biogas, that could be converted into this biodegradable plastic, as I was saying. At the end of the day, if we act upon them, if we leave them the way they are, of course they're toxic. But if we cover them, if we turn them into resources, I look at them as the next generation oil field, the next generation gold mines. And they really are. And we just have to approach them the right way. We have to invest in them, and we could turn them into valuable resources instead of the headache and the problem that they are right now.
What is the next step you're taking?
Duplicating. So, we've gotten something to work in one place. Right now, we're moving very fast. We would love, if I could wave a magic wand, would have 6 facilities, one in Senegal, 4 in Nigeria alone, just in Lagos, in Rwanda, Uganda, Botswana, Harare, lots of places that we're super excited about, and we've done a whole lot of studies, and we just want to start building.
What is the first place you're going to?
Kinshasa is a place that we're investing aggressively on.
How easy is that copy paste process going?
Not as easy as we hoped it would be, but it is a lot easier having had the experience. So a lot of the lessons learned from Ethiopia have genuinely translated. But at the end of the day, the minute a government is ready to say, hey, waste is a bad thing, how can I get a private-public partnership going so that I could turn it into something of value in a very sustainable way? Again, we are doing this as a social entrepreneurs. Our goal, our return is not just capital return, but also the social return that we want to see.
Could you also say something? You said Kinshasa was, for certain reason, difficult. Is it more of a governance thing? Is it a cultural thing, or is it just a combination of factors?
It's a combination of factors. When you go into a new market, it's very hard. And the other thing about Kinshasa is just a massive city. Quick fact for you, it's the largest French-speaking city in the whole entire world. Double the size of Paris. So it's a massive, massive city. And when you do something in a city of that nature with very, very, lack of infrastructures that do not exist there, you have to rebuild so many things. So that becomes a bit of a challenge. But from governance side, it has improved quite a lot, significantly actually, from where it used to be. And those are the things that attract the private sector. There are a lot of markets that we cannot go to just because of governance. But the minute the government gets ready and starts to channel to the world that we are open for business and we're open to make change, we're there in a heartbeat.
I can see you through a webcam, but I can still feel your energy. You're a very positive person. What kind of characteristic do you need if you want to be a social entrepreneur in these kind of places, like let's say in Lagos, Senegal? What do you need as a person?
Patience. and optimism helps quite a lot.
Because that's exactly the feeling that I have in making these kind of podcasts. I think there's a huge potential, but at first you need a lot of patience to tap into that.
Yes. And the other thing I want to add there is collaboration. So the minute when we're trying to do everything on our own, oh my God, it's such a burden. But there are others that have solved the thing that I am not so good at, and just finding where's my core competency, how do I collaborate? Partnerships. It makes things a lot easier. It allows us to move. And when I am down, the energy of somebody else, which happens to be on the higher spectrum at that given time, actually as an osmosis moves and gives you the energy you need to get things done. So absolutely, collaboration, patience, and optimism are the combination of things that you need to get things done.
I think I have a picture of the work you're doing and the challenges you're going for. Arne, do you have one final or last question?
Well, of course, we're really looking forward to see in the next couple of years how many more of these plants you can build. So keep them coming.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to go back to a personal question. I was thinking, you explained that you moved from Silicon Valley to Ethiopia, but I was wondering what specific moment in time, or what kind of thought, was there a specific moment when you thought, I have to do this? Like, from a personal perspective, I mean, not from an, like, was there one moment you thought, now it has to happen, this is what I want to do?
That is a good question. The thing is, there isn't a single moment that said, oh my God, like, I'm in Africa, forget the West anymore. It took me a while. It's a process, but for me, the minute I was back on the ground, having left and then going to school, having all the privileges that I could have ever hoped for, going back, for me, the more I am seeing the entrepreneurial spirit on the ground and the challenges, like, oh my God, like, just I could make a difference in a significant way. And then that continuously pulls you in. And you will also realize over time that the best way to make an impact is to actually be on the ground, but to also continuously bring in the resources and the relationship and the contacts that you've been fortunate enough to have in a place like Silicon Valley continuously. So for me, it has been a continuous process. So I call both the US and Ethiopia and the greater Africa my home. So both of them are my homes. I am forever interconnected between the two, and Africa needs me just a little more, so I spend a little more time there.
That's a beautiful way to end this episode, this special NEBC episode. Thank you so much also for your personal words, Samuel. And I just wanted to add, you can listen to all our podcasts on Spotify, but you can also go to our website. It's africast.nl. If you want to know more about NEBC, just go to nabc.nl. Thank you for listening to this podcast. A special thanks, of course, to Samuel Alemeu from Cambridge Industries. And we were happy to record this special episode at Werf 5 in Utrecht. And thank you, Arne Doornbal from NEBC, and of course, Marcel Wolters from NGIZ Nu. We'll be back in 2 weeks. See you then. Bye-bye.